Twice the man got drafted by the NBA and couldn't play. That's ridiculous, right?
I couldn't leave here without showing out. Gotta make it crystal clear what I'm really about. The material you hear came from the south. It's the material you feel. I am the specialist, lyrical medalist, hotter than devil, spit lighter than Thomas Edison, sicker than backwards medicine, flowing with adrenaline, stomping tracks like Timberland, ending rappers like citizens, and there is no replenishing. Memphis 10, Eminem, give inches with a million pins, chances slimmer than a wheat thin, don't believe me, chicks.
What up though, it's your boy King Richard, aka the God of Rap from Creative Minds Entertainment. That's K of me. If you don't know, I swear you know now. Let's talk a little sports. We're gonna throw it back for a moment, right? If you hear any noise, just ignore it. I live by a damn highway. A recent article came out by Clyde the Glide Drexler, and he said, and I quote, "We would have 4, 5, or 6 titles if I had some help in Portland." Now, I know you've heard this from a lot of OGs. I know you heard this from some of the younger cats. Man, if we had this player or if we had a little more help, we would have won a bunch of titles. Yeah, it's the big what if in sports, right? They talk about it all the time, especially in the NBA. And there is some truth to it, because some of these teams did have pretty good or decent coaching, and they had a nice star, but they didn't have great supporting cast. They didn't have a great a bunch of role players that could really, really play and get it done. They were very one-dimensional, very limited in skill, no matter how many years they went to college. And we're talking about a lot, especially a lot of teams from the mid to late 80s. Let's say mid 80s on to the late 90s. It was a lot of trash players in the league. A lot of unskilled guys at every position, right? Who he's talking about is a European player, a European legend now, Arvydas Sabonis. Now, many of us may remember Arvydas Sabonis. Most of us probably don't. Here's the article. It says, Arvydas Sabonis was picked 77th overall in the 1985 NBA draft by the Atlanta Hawks. But the selection was voided since he was under 21 on draft day. I hate those darn draft rules, don't you? Arvydas was again picked 24th overall in the 1986 NBA draft by the Blazers, the Portland Trail Blazers, as they were called at that time, but was forbidden to play in the NBA by Soviet authorities. Twice the man got drafted by the NBA and couldn't play. That's ridiculous, right? And this is a time where we had Boston Celtics Big Three and a super team, because super teams existed back in the day, even though people act like they didn't. Maybe they just don't know their history. The Los Angeles Lakers definitely had their Big Ten and their super team. Detroit Pistons didn't have a super team, but they were very, very close. Philadelphia 76ers, they had a semi-super team. So by the time the 90s rolled around, the Celtics died out, of course, got old. The Pistons began to die out. The 76ers had died out. And, of course, the Lakers had died out. So now this is when the Bulls start to win their championships. They start to go on their run. And Portland Trailblazers, who had a pretty good team, if you know your history, you know that it matched up with Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls in 1992 NBA Finals. They had a pretty good team, but the Bulls beat them in 6. Anybody who watched that series knew Portland wasn't gonna win. Clyde Drexler was a pretty good player, no doubt about it. Definitely one of the best shooting guards, top 10 shooting guard, in my opinion. Definitely top 10 shooting guards of all time. But he wasn't Michael Jordan. And he didn't have the cast that Michael Jordan had. Michael Jordan had a solid cast. I think people tend to think Michael Jordan went 6-0 because he was just so good. But the truth of the matter is he had a good team every single time he made the finals. And he had the best team, of course, a few years later in 1996. Now, if Arvydas Sabonis, who was a 7'3" center, think of, in today's game, he would be Nikola Jokic. So think about the Joker on the Portland Trailblazers at that time. It says, come the 1995-96 NBA season, Sabonis finally stepped on the NBA court. He showed off his searing potential. Unfortunately, Clyde Drexler had already been traded to the Houston Rockets the season prior. He missed teaming up with Sabonis, who would have been a perfect fit for Drexler's play style. Once again, this would be like Jimmy Butler and Jokic together. In my opinion, I think Clyde Drexler was I know him and Jimmy Butler, they kind of got different play styles as far as like Clyde Drexler was a more above the rim type of guy. That having a 7'3" center who can play make like Jokic, you know what I'm saying? But actually, Arvydas Sabonis was actually a better defender than Jokic. So we're talking, if he would have came in 85 or at least 86 and built a team, you know, with the Blazers who made the finals in 92, they probably would have made the finals in 88, 89. They probably would have been champions at least twice before the Bulls actually won, right? They would have been some real smoke. So I think this article in Clyde Drexler, what he's saying, has a lot of credence to it, has a lot of weight to it. And I noticed that a lot of players are getting interviews these days. A lot of the OGs from the 70s, from the 80s, well, not so much from the 70s, but from the 80s, from the 90s, and the early 2000s are doing a lot of interviews thanks to these podcasts and this renewed interest in the history of the NBA. And rightfully so. These people deserve the spotlight, no doubt about it. They have great stories, and it's nice to compare the old school to the new school to see, you know, how they measure up and things of that nature. Even though it's different eras, different rules, different play styles or whatnot,